All right, folks, it is time for my 2023 NFL mock draft. Now, as I had already mentioned, this mock draft was recorded on Saturday prior to the news that Aaron Rodgers was traded to the New York Jets. So at this point in the mock draft, the Jets have the 13th pick, the Packers have the 15th pick. It does not change who I think either team is going to draft because I think both players will be there. So with that being said, I want you to go ahead, sit back, and enjoy. And this is my 2023 NFL mock draft. The Carolina Panthers are on the clock. And with the number one overall selection in the 2023 NFL draft, the Carolina Panthers, who was moved up with the Chicago Bears, I believe will be taking Bryce Young, the quarterback out of the University of Alabama, was a very small quarterback. There are comparisons, obviously, to Russell Wilson. There are some things that he does that are very Patrick Mahomes-like. I believe Bryce Young is the best overall talent in this draft. Off the charts playmaking ability. He has uncoachable pocket movement and creativity, throwing wide receivers open. He is unfazed under pressure. He played big in the biggest games this year. I believe that Bryce Young is special. I've been saying it for weeks. I think above CJ Stroud, above Anthony Richardson, above Will Levis. Those are your top four quarterbacks in this draft. I believe Bryce Young does go number one overall to the Carolina Panthers. I think he has the highest ceiling, and with an offensive coach in Frank Reich, again, there's a little bit of concern there about Bryce Young's size, but I think going to Carolina, where they have Miles Sanders and Hayden Hurst and the other pieces, Frank Reich will figure out the offensive line out. He's going to go in a good position because he is an offensive coach, and I think Bryce Young will succeed as the quarterback of the Carolina Panthers. Now, the very interesting aspect of this draft, as we talked about it a couple weeks ago, is there are a lot of teams in this draft that need similar things. And so you're going to see a lot of movement. This draft, in my opinion, was very hard to pinpoint exactly who teams were going to take. You can make a debate for a lot of players. There are some rumors out there. The Houston Texans, who of course are led by defensive-minded head coach DeMeco Ryans, are not going to take a quarterback. They will instead take Will Anderson, the edge rusher out of Alabama. They will tank essentially with Davis Mills, and they will go after one of the two quarterbacks, whether it be Drake May out of North Carolina or Caleb Williams out of USC in next year's draft. In my opinion, that would be a mistake. Not saying that those two guys aren't going to be special, but you never know how seasons are going to turn out. And when you have an opportunity to get the number 2 pick in the NFL draft, I think you have to take a swing here. Now, my second rated quarterback behind Bryce Young is Anthony Richardson. But I don't think Houston with Davis Mills is going to have the ability to sort of sit him. I think he needs, an Alex Smith like Patrick Mahomes did. I think he's going to need, a full year of sitting, like what I think potentially Seattle could do. I'll get to that when it's time to come with their second pick in the first round. So look forward to that. I believe that the second best quarterback on the Houston Texans board is CJ Stroud. So that's what I'm going to take. I'm not as big on CJ Stroud as a lot of the other analysts that are out there. I've never seen him really make a tight, contested window throw, obviously with those great receivers that Ohio State has. He did play very well against Georgia, but is that one game tape pop enough for me? I'm not sure. He struggled against Michigan. Now, he does throw a beautiful ball at times, but he was not great under pressure. You blitz him, he really struggled. Predetermined reads, he struggled. And on that S2 score, he scored very low, and usually that's not a good sign for the quarterback position. But I do think the Houston Texans select CJ Stroud with the number 2 overall pick. At number 3, this is where, in my opinion, the draft really does start with the Arizona Cardinals, because I do not believe the Cardinals are going to make this pick. I think they're going to trade back. Now, the interesting thing here is, do the Indianapolis Colts decide to essentially move up one spot to guarantee themselves either Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, whoever the new head coach Shane Steichen wants? For the record, I do think the Colts like Anthony Richardson over Will Levis, but there are reports out there the Colts do like Will Levis. I think they put that smoke screen out there to get somebody to bid up to take Will Levis, because they really do not want him. And that team that's going to bid up to take Will Levis with a third overall pick will be the Tennessee Titans, who, oddly enough, Will Levis reminds me of a guy that Tennessee drafted in about 2011 who was really bad, that being Jake Walker. Now, he does have a great arm, but he is bad in contested throws. He struggled when the pocket was clean. His feet are inconsistent, and he does not throw from a consistent base. Very wild angles. Will Levis, to me, reminds me of Zach Wilson, who I did not like when he came out of BYU. Reminds me of Johnny Manziel, who I did not like when he came out of Texas A&M. I am not a fan of Will Levis. I think if there's one quarterback in this draft that has the potential to bust, it's going to be Will Levis. But Tennessee is not happy with Ryan Tannehill. They're going to feel the need to take a big swing, and I don't think Mike Vrabel wants to wait on a project like Anthony Richardson. There are people that believe that even though Will Levis may not be the best quarterback in the draft, he is ready to play now. I think Tennessee is going to take a calculated risk that is not going to pay off. Tennessee, who is looking around at their division, seeing Houston just got C.J. Stroud, Jacksonville, obviously, with Trevor Lawrence, the Colts going to draft a quarterback. They don't want the Colts getting Will Levis, who they think they want. Tennessee leapfrogs them. Arizona moves back to 11. Fourth pick, the Colts get who they want. Now, Anthony Richardson reminds me so much of Josh Allen, right? Big, strong, raw kid. Remember what they said about Josh Allen when he came out of Wyoming? They said he wasn't accurate. They said he needed a couple years to develop. Lo and behold, Josh Allen is currently a top 5 quarterback in the National Football League. I believe Anthony Richardson with Shane Steichen, who is, again, an offensive mind leading him, a great offensive line surrounded by Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor. I think Anthony Richardson in a year or two, a lot like Josh Allen, you're going to see a little bit of him late year one. He will struggle, but he will be able to run. Year two, a little bit of a better passer, still the great running ability. Year three, then, he pops, and I think the Colts find their franchise quarterback. Anthony Richardson from Florida goes number 4. So unlike most mock drafts, again, there's a reason why I only do one mock draft per year. I don't do it a lot. I take big swings. I whiff a lot. I'm not saying I'm going to get any of these picks right, but I do have the top 4 in the draft all being from the quarterback position, the most premium position in all of sports. Number 5, the questionable Jalen Carter, the defensive lineman, the big 300-pounder from Georgia. He goes to the Seattle Seahawks. We know his great ability. We know about the character concerns. But I think Seattle has always been take risk on players organization. They have the luxury of having 2 first-round picks, and in this case, it might do them good. They have a defensive-minded head coach in Pete Carroll who really knows how to coach defense. We know Seattle has a great secondary. We know they have good weapons offensively, a good offensive line. What they need more of is a pass rush, and Jalen Carter fits the mold of the Seahawks defense. Great, tremendous footwork. He weaves around blocks like a linebacker. He is just tremendous at every ability. He could be a top 2 to 3 talent in this draft. Some people are going to be, again, afraid of him because of character issues. I think Seattle takes the chance. They take, in my opinion, the best defensive player in this draft at number 5. Now, the Detroit Lions, They need an edge rusher, which this draft is very strong at edge rusher, but they need somebody to complement Aiden Hutchinson, and Will Anderson out of Alabama is perfect for that. Will Anderson has an elite first step. He has the flexibility that makes life so much easier on the edge. The pass rushing toolbox is limited, but he does not need any moves to be successful. The dude is a straight animal, and I believe the Lions get their guy they've always wanted. You can make an argument here that they go corner with Christian Gonzalez, the big, long 6'2" defensive back out of Oregon. But I think with Will Anderson being there at this point, you cannot pass up on him. Again, we know the Lions need secondary help, but you cannot pass up on Will Anderson at this point. I think he goes number 6 to the Detroit Lions, which means at number 7, Christian Gonzalez, a long, lengthy 6'2" corner, as I already mentioned, with great speed, goes to the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, the Raiders got their quarterback upgrade from Derek Carr to Jimmy Garoppolo, if you want to call it an upgrade, in the offseason. We know they have tremendous weapons. Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow. Obviously, they did lose Darren Waller to the New York Giants. They still have tremendous running back in Josh Jacobs. Their offensive line is getting better. Max Crosby on the edge. What they really do not have at all is secondary, specifically corner. Christian Gonzalez may fix that. Josh McDaniels and obviously Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator, coming from the Belichick tree, wants to play man coverage. This guy, to me, is a perfect fit for Vegas, which leaves Atlanta, which desperately needs help with their pass rush as we get now a line of 5, 6, 7, and now 8, 4 straight defensive players. Atlanta takes a lengthy 6'6", 271-pound, long and physical defensive edge, Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech. Now, he was a late bloomer in this draft. His tape, he really struggled the first 3 years, came on this year. Got to be patient here in the right situation. Again, he's long and lengthy. Some people feel like, he could be a great edge. Some people feel like he's not consistent enough. Atlanta just brought on Calais Campbell to be a nice veteran to him. And Atlanta has spent a lot of money, Jesse Bates, among others, on the defensive side of the ball this year as they look to turn around that defense, because their offense, even with Desmond Ridder last year, was not that bad. Atlanta still needs a quarterback for the future. They will get one this year with the top 4 already gone. They get the best next defensive player available on the board in Tyree Wilson. Now we go to the Chicago Bears, who we all know the struggles that Justin Fields had last year. They did get DJ Moore, nice upgraded receiver. They have Cole Kmet. They did lose David Montgomery at running back, but they're going to be fine at running back. They have a supplement of other good backs. What they really need is protection for Justin Fields. The left tackle they drafted a few years ago has not worked out. So I have been taking, in my opinion, the best tackle in this draft, Peter Skoronski, the tackle out of Northwestern. He is a technician, quick feet, can play in space, and can play almost any single position on that offensive line. I think the Bears get the best tackle in this draft and protect Justin Fields, that number 9 overall pick. Now this is interesting. We're going to have our second trade of the first round. That being the Philadelphia Eagles. They will trade this pick. They're going to trade all the way back to number 17 because the Pittsburgh Steelers are moving up to select Kajon Kinsey, the defensive tackle out of Pittsburgh. We saw last year they take Kenny Pickett, the quarterback out of Pittsburgh in the first round. Now, back-to-back years, they go with a Pittsburgh kid they know well in the building for, and the Steelers. When TJ Watt is not on the field, this team struggles to get consistent pass rush. Their defense has not been as good as in years past. We know Cameron Hayward is getting up there. And so Pittsburgh now gets a guy who's great speed. 281-pound defensive tackle. He can rush the passer and really provide another option to hit one-on-one windows Fort EJ1. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles are going to make this move because obviously that they are the NFC champions. They are the runner-ups in the Super Bowl. In my opinion, I do believe that Howie Roseman wants to trade this pick. And I think he wants to trade this pick because the Eagles do not have a ton of late round picks. They go from a third to a seventh. And Howie has the luxury of having most of his NFC, championship team that he built last year back. So there's an argument to be made. You could sit here, you could take the running back out of Texas, Bijan Robinson, but as you'll see later on, I have him falling in this draft. I think it's the best interest for the Eagles to trade back, get some depth for some later picks, and move this pick. And Pittsburgh moves up here to get a stud defensive tackle at number 10. Now, Arizona, we know that Budda Baker is seemingly out the door. We know they need to rebuild their secondary. They may take a receiver here if they decide to part with DeAndre Hopkins. However, Jonathan Gannon, new head coach, the defensive head coach, he's going to want to rebuild that defense. And so, in my opinion, the second corner off the board, who had the best EFF grade out of all corners in the draft with a 92.5 in a breakout year in 2022, is the corner out of Illinois, Devin Witherspoon. He diagnosed routes well. He jumps too much at times, reminds me a lot of Stephon Diggs. Great man corner, takes a lot of risks, but I think Arizona, who had Patrick Peterson for all those years, is looking for their next shutdown corner here in Devin Witherspoon. If they don't go there, they could go with this next pick for the Houston Texans, who I believe get C.J. Stroud's teammate, Jackson Smith-Njigba out of Ohio State, who's going to be a go-to number one wide receiver day one in the league, does not go down with arm tackles after the catch. He does lack a little bit of outspeed. He won't run away from safeties, but he is a dominating presence who will make your offense that much better. And Houston, who has struggled with the offense side of the ball now for years. And again, they have a defensive-minded head coach in D'Amico Ryans, but he was around Kyle Shanahan and that offensive-minded scheme in San Francisco. The Texans are rarity. Defensive-minded head coach take two offensive players to start out their draft. Now, this next pick, maybe the most interesting pick of the first round, right? Because it's the New York Jets at number 13. And the New York Jets have a lot going on with Aaron Rodgers. I saw some speculation that if Will Levis is still there at this pick at 13, they may take him. I don't think that's the case. I do think Rodgers is going to eventually be a Jet, and I do think that the Jets need to protect Aaron Rodgers because their offensive line is not great. Again, you look at these teams. Pittsburgh could use another offensive lineman. Arizona could use another offensive lineman. Houston, obviously. But they also have so many needs. That's what I'm saying. This draft is very interesting because you could make a case for a lot of these players going to a lot of different places. But I have the Jets taking Paris Johnson, the large, big tackle out of Ohio State. The one knock on him is he only played tackle 1 year at Ohio State. He played right guard in 2021. Did good, though, last year at tackle in 2022. And again, very strong frame, big frame, can mow over people. And if he works out, he's going to be the blindside protector for Aaron Rodgers and whatever other quarterback the Jets come up with after Aaron Rodgers for years to come. Now, as always, very interesting team, the New England Patriots, right? They could pick a D3 player out of the cornfields that we never even heard of. But a Georgia guy is there. A lot of people think this guy could be a top 10 pick in this draft potentially. Again, I've seen some tackles, in the same draft go as high as 7 or 8 or 9. And I've seen the same guy go as high as 18. So it really depends on certain teams' preference, certain tape watchers' preference, who you like more. But I think New England is going to go with Nolan Smith, the edge out of Georgia. Now, he's coming off a torn pec, but he fits the Belichick mold where he can play right next to Matthew Judon. he's only 238 pounds, but he's got great quickness off the edge. He can bend. He can play 4-3. He can play 3-4. He's a very versatile player, and he comes out of the SEC, which we all know Belichick will like. There's also the option. He takes the hybrid safety out of Alabama, Brian Burch. I think that's a real option here for New England, but I think New England needs more pass rush help. They need secondary help, even though they did lose Devin McCourty to retirement. They did bring back Jalen Mills. They still have the Jacksons in there. So New England didn't get a constant pass rush last year. I think Belichick upgrades to that. He does not trade down here in my mock draft at least. Stays at 14 and takes the kid Nolan Smith, who many people think, again, could be a top 10 prospect in this draft. Now, the Green Bay Packers. A lot of people think this year they're finally going to go offense, whether it's Don Kincaid, Michael Meyer, one of the two tight ends, whether they go Quintez Johnson, the wide receiver out of ECU. I think they're going to stick to their norm. I think they're going to take Lucas Van Ness, the edge out of Iowa, who's very strong for a 270-pound edge. He's a little bit of a one-move rusher, so he's a little bit of a project. He was never a full-time starter for Iowa, which does concern me a little bit. Obviously, Iowa does have a pretty good defense. But I do think that the Packers, again, Iowa is sort of near Wisconsin a little bit, though it's more near Chicago, but it's sort of that region, if you get what I will. Green Bay likes those pass rushers. They can come in and contribute. They like taking edge and defensive linemen in the first round. They will slowly work him in. They love the fact that he's 270 pounds. They like the strongness of him. That's why Green Bay makes that pick. Now, the Washington Commanders, their first new pick, with new ownership. I know Eric Bieniemy is in there, and they're going to try to modernize the offense side of the ball. Many people think this could be a quarterback. I do not. I think defensive-minded head coach Ron Rivera is going to stick to his guns. They need a corner more. And so Deontay Burks out of Maryland, who's a great tackle. He only missed one tackle this year in college. He is a good coverage corner. Sometimes he struggles with awareness in zone, but another case like Christian Gonzalez, where he's a very good man corner. We know Washington is a bad secondary, and I think they pick up this man, Deontay Burks, who played college, obviously, very close to Washington, D.C. area in Maryland there, and he is the number 16 pick for the Washington Commanders. Now, this pick was originally the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now it's the Philadelphia Eagles at number 17. But it's not going to be the Philadelphia Eagles pick because I believe that Howie Roseman trades back again. Because he's going to use another pick that he got in that Pittsburgh Steelers trade along with this pick here at number 17 to trade to the Arizona Cardinals for Budda Baker. Yes, you heard that right. I believe Budda Baker is on the move. I alluded to it earlier. He wants out of Arizona. They have the relationship there with Jonathan Gannon being the new head coach in Arizona, former defensive coordinator of the Eagles. And Gannon can get a Budda Baker-like player in Brian Branch, the safety out of Alabama. Howie Roseman and the Eagles do not want to go for young players. They are in a Super Bowl window. They want to get win-now players. And even if you get Budda Baker for 1 year before he gets paid, you work out the contract. We saw Howie take a risk on C.J. Gardner-Johnson last year. It worked out. I think he takes another risk this year. He goes and gets Budda Baker on the one weakness of this Eagles team, which is safety right now. Budda Baker becomes an Eagle. Brian Burch, who can play nickel corner, he can play safety, he's a great tackler, he's physical. He becomes the Arizona Cardinals pick at number 17. First tight end off the board at number 18 is the Lions. They get Dalton Kincaid, the tight end out of Utah, who's a great blocker, looks like a wide receiver. We know they turned TJ Hockenson to the Vikings at the trade deadline last year because they're going to get potentially an even better player than TJ Hockenson here in Dalton Kincaid at number 18. Number 19, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're going to go defensive line here. Again, you can make a case for defensive back, offensive line as well. But I think with Todd Bowles, defensive minded head coach, as I always say, you got to remember, if you have an offensive minded head coach, they're going to influence offense more than likely, unless you really need defense like the Raiders. The defensive minded head coach, they're going to really influence defense unless you truly need offensive pieces that are available, like Matt Eberflus in Chicago with the offensive line. So I think Tampa takes Brian Brees. He's a good defensive tackle out of Clemson, takes on double teams well, and the problem is, though, he was injured the last 2 years in college, right? Tore his ACL in 2021, his shoulder in 2022. But again, he takes on double teams well. He's a very versatile player. I think he fills up a need that Tampa, defensive line really struggled last year when Brady was there. So Brian Brees, defensive tackle out of Clemson, belongs here to the Buccaneers. This is going to be my most questionable pick of the first round. Some people have him as a first round talent. Some people have him potentially going as late as the third round. I think most of that was because he's coming off a torn ACL. He reminds me a lot of Anthony Richardson, so that might be a little bit of a spoiler. And as I said, with this second pick Seattle has in the first round, they already took a risk on Jalen Carter. They take another risk here. They take their potential quarterback of the future who can sit behind Geno Smith for a year or two or learn. Again, you don't like the fact he's got a defensive minded head coach in Pete Carroll, but it seems that they have a strong offensive coordinator in Shane Waldron. The Seattle Seahawks select Hayden Hooker out of Tennessee, the quarterback, who again, to me, is almost the carbon copy of Anthony Richardson, minus the fact that he had a torn ACL last year. I think he needs a year or two of development sitting behind Geno Smith, but this could be a home run pick for Seattle, who may find their franchise quarterback after Russell Wilson a year after having Geno Smith. Chargers are going to take the Mike Williams compliment. Quentin Johnson, wide receiver out of TCU. Again, 6'3", 215. Good hands and the perfect compliment to Mike Williams. At number 22, now this guy slid down the draft a little bit, but I think he is here. He's perfect for the Ravens, who really struggled last year in the secondary, that being Joey Porter, the corner out of Penn State. Again, a lot like Christian Gonzalez, really long, 6'2" corners. He's got good guys to the ball. Now, that doesn't mean he's got a great burst, because he does not. But in that Ravens secondary that really needs help outside of Marlon Humphrey, I think Joey Porter here has the potential to slide. Could he go to Arizona? Sure. Could he go to Washington? Sure. Again, could he go to Tampa? Sure. Could he even go to Seattle or the Chargers? Absolutely. So there's a lot of wiggle room here. I think he slides a little bit, though, and goes 22 to Baltimore. Now, we know how horrific Minnesota was last year on defense, so they just take the best player available at this point, which is Myles Murphy, the edge out of Clemson, who has a great motor, good power, but he did struggle occasionally when taking on blocks. Jacksonville, same thing, right? They need a pass rusher, so they're going to take the best edge available. Again, we talk about the defensive players in this draft, whether it is Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson, Myles Murphy, Will McDonald here that I said going to Jacksonville, Brian Brees to Clemson. So there is some strong, Nolan Smith out of Georgia. There is some strong edge and interior players in this draft. Will McDonald, I think the thing I like about him for Jacksonville a lot is he has experience. At Iowa State, he played all 5 years. Very explosive off the ball. Giants, they just paid Daniel Jones $40 million. So what are you going to do? You're going to award him on the offensive side of the ball in the draft. You're going to take Zay Flowers, the wide receiver out of Boston College, who is a great route runner. Now, he sometimes can struggle in separation, but with Brian Daboll being such a good offensive coach, he's going to find a way to scheme him open. And I believe the Giants add another playmaker to their repertoire for Daniel Jones to use. Dallas, then, as I mentioned already, I think Bijan Robinson falls right into their lap and is a perfect complement to Tony Pollard. Again, he's just a do-it-all back. three down back, pass protection, running, pass catching. He is an excellent weapon, and this is why you get rid of Ezekiel Elliott to go get this guy here, Bijan Robinson. There's some people that think he can go as high as 10, and you can make an argument for, the Giants taking the pick before with Dalvin Cook out of the picture. Could Minnesota potentially take him? What about Baltimore? Austin Eckler situation with the Chargers. Do the Chargers take a risk? I don't see it, but I could very well potentially see one of those teams doing it. I just don't believe in Howie Roseman's DNA. He's taking a running back at 10. That's never been the Howie Roseman philosophy, unless he feels that Bijan Robinson is such a potential superstar that you can add alongside Jalen Hurts in that zone and the read option game and the offensive modern scheme that I obviously talk about all the time. But I don't think Dallas is going to need to move up for him. Maybe they have different intel than I do. Again, this mock draft could be completely horrible, but that is my pick there, is Bijan Robinson goes to Dallas at 26. Buffalo, Emmanuel Forbes, a corner out of Mississippi State. He allowed the lowest amount of completions in man coverage in college football. He has the ability to track the football, but he is, again, very much a gambler. A lot of these corners in this draft did not play it on as well at Mississippi State, which is why he falls a little bit here. But we know Tre'Davious White has been injured for a little bit for Buffalo. We know they're great safeties, obviously, Jordan Poyer, Michael Hyde. They've never found a consistent defensive back opposite of Tre'Davious White, who has been hurt as well. Buffalo does not have a lot of needs. I mean, they need a running back, but they never truly do run the football. They give the ball more to James Cook this year. Don't need a tight end. Don't need a receiver. Offensive line's pretty decent. Pass rush is pretty decent. Linebackers decent. Safeties are decent. They need a corner, and so this pick makes sense for them. Cincinnati lost Aiden Hurst. They replaced him with Michael Mayer, the tight end out of Notre Dame, who's not so much of a vertical threat, but they don't really need him to be a vertical threat. It's why I have Dalton Kincaid, who's more of a vertical threat. It's why I have him personally ranked over Michael Mayer, though I could see these two potentially flip. Some people have Mayer rated higher than Kincaid. But with Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins on the outside, you need a good tight end in the middle of the field. That's what Michael Mayer does. Cincinnati adds to their offense. Again, offensive-minded head coach, Zach Taylor. So watch the tight end to add even more pieces to their offense. Defensive-minded head coach, Dennis Allen and the Saints. They already got Derek Carr. They're thinking, okay, we're good on offense. We need more of a pass rush to complement Cam Jordan. This guy has a lot of pass rushing moves. He's got a great first step. He's very productive. We're going to take Felix Aduki-Azuwu out of Kansas State. I apologize if I butcher that name. I have not taken Spanish in a while. But again, the edge rusher out of Kansas State, I believe, goes to the Saints. Now, this is another case where some people believe that this person I have, the Philadelphia Eagles, taking at number 30, could go in the top 15. There's some mock drafts that I see him going in the lower first round or potentially in the second round. That being tackle Darrell Wright out of Tennessee. The one thing Jeff Stoutland, the Eagles offensive line coach, is going to love about Darrell Wright is he has years of experience at left and right tackle. He's a little bit of a project. His foot speed is below average, but the Eagles are going to have him fill in here in a year or two for Lane Johnson when he eventually retires. This draft for the Philadelphia Eagles, in my opinion, outside of getting Budda Baker, which would be an absolute home run like Howie Roseman did last year with A.J. Brown, is about not necessarily getting guys to contribute for this year. We saw it last year with Nakobe Dean. We saw it with Cam Urges. This year, they're both going to play. Urges at right guard, home move to center, obviously, when Jason Kelce retires. Nakobe Dean at middle linebacker. This year is about, can we get our Lane Johnson replacement at right tackle? Maybe you go and you get a guard later in the draft as Isaac Samalo goes to Pittsburgh. So that's what it's all about. Again, a little bit of a project. He's going to need a year to sit by the best offensive line coach in the game in Jeff Stott when Eagles take Darrell Wright, the tackle out of Tennessee. And with the final pick, We know Juju Smith-Schuster left Kansas City to go to New England. They replaced him with a USC product, Jordan Atchison, who is a great route runner. And that is my NFL mock draft for 2023. You like that clip from the Brands World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brands World podcast right here on YouTube.